Now, a US court has ruled that former President Donald Trump does not, after all, have immunity from prosecution, even many years after leaving office. And he now could face charges of insurrection on January the 6th. Meanwhile, former Fox News presenter Tucker Carlson is going to be the first Western journalist to interview Vladimir Putin since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Big debate about whether or not he should be doing that. Well, let's discuss this now with former advisor to both the Clinton and Bush administrations, Steve Gill. Good morning to you. It's probably still definitely morning for you, very early in the day. Thanks for joining us still, Steve. Let's talk first of all about Donald Trump. I mean, I have to say, I thought it was a long shot from Donald Trump. The man has chutzpah, we know that, but a bit of a long shot to suggest that once you're a president, not only while you're in the Oval Office, but years afterwards, you should absolutely have complete immunity from any prosecution of any civil or criminal charges. Now, were you surprised by the court decision, and what does this mean?
I wasn't surprised by this liberal district court in Washington, D.C., three-judge panel decision. I do think it opens a huge Pandora's box of danger for future presidents, because not only did they apparently misread the calendar, but the allegations against Trump are clearly within the time that he was president, and bringing the charges afterwards doesn't mean that he wasn't acting with presidential authority when he was acting within that time during the presidency. The problem is, one of the prosecutors argued that if you didn't do this, that Donald Trump could simply order, or any president could order the Navy SEALs to go out and execute somebody, and they would be immune from prosecution. The problem with that analogy is that there is still limited immunity depending on the circumstances. For example, if President Trump sent out the Navy SEALs to kill a terrorist who was getting ready to launch a nuclear attack in New York, that would clearly be within the parameters of a president doing their duties. If he sent them out to kill somebody because they pinched Melania's posterior at a fundraiser, that would be clearly outside the parameters. But the president, trying to secure safe and honest elections is clearly within the duties of the president. And I think the Supreme Court will throw this out pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, it's now going to be heard. He's going to appeal the decision. It's going to be heard by the full circuit of judges in Washington and the US Supreme Court. But of course, one of the other purposes of all of these cases, every single appeal, every single route he's trying, is, I think, is it 91 indictments he faces in total, both in federal and in different state charges, that actually he just wants to delay things. Everything is built on, he wants to delay everything until after the November presidential election in the US, because we know that every time he appears in court and every more charges, his poll ratings go up among the American population. But there's a lot of polling suggesting that if he were actually found guilty, if he was convicted, if he went to jail for some of these things, then his poll rating would collapse.
Well, all these prosecutions are being rushed because the prosecutors are looking at the timeline of the persecution. They thought, as you point out, oh, we'll indict him and his poll numbers will go down, but they went up. We'll get a mugshot, his poll numbers will go down. They went up.
He started selling it on T-shirts.
These cases are so bogus. Yeah, that's right. And mugshots, little mug shots of whiskey. The problem that they face is that these cases are falling apart. And this one in particular, the idea that Trump can be prosecuted for insurrection when none of the January 6th protesters have been prosecuted, charged, or convicted, and you've got some states trying to kick.
Bit of a problem with your line. Good, your line came back then.
Or convicted of insurrection by any court.
The thing is, though, of course, that Mr. Gill, there are different charges. Some of them are more likely to stick than others. And I've always said, I think these are politically motivated, these charges being brought when they are. However, I still think they're bang to rights, an awful lot of them, in terms of his interference in Georgia with electoral officials. Basically, find me some more votes. There's no doubt at all, Donald Trump was not willing to accept the democratic decision of the American people and wanted to stay in office. There was some real concern about whether they were going to have to send in the National Guard to drag him out of the Oval Office, for goodness sake, in January 2021. So, I mean, I think there are certainly good reason for these charges to be brought. The timing of them, but a giveaway, and I think it is quite amusing that it's backfired on the Democrats, but it could backfire on Donald Trump if he is found guilty of any of these.
But keep in mind, they are trying to rush these things using the speedy trial argument. The speedy trial provisions are to protect the defendant, not to let the prosecutors bull rush a case to trial. And again, all these prosecutions are looking at November, not at whether or not it's a legitimate charge or not.
Okay, let's also talk about Tucker Carlson. We've already played the clip a little bit earlier on where he's in Moscow and he's talking to his millions and millions of followers online, the former Fox News presenter, of course, saying, look, this is why I'm in Moscow. We're going to be interviewing Vladimir Putin. A lot of people are saying, like, this is going to be a soft soap interview. We don't know yet whether he goes in hard, whether he challenges Vladimir Putin, whether we learn anything new and worthwhile. But there will be some people questioning why he is giving a very bad person who we are effectively at war with. We're funding Ukrainian fight against the Russian invaders, giving him a platform to spout his propaganda. But do you think that this interview is justified? Because it's always good for us to hear from the horse's mouth.
I think it is good, and I think it's important that Tucker is willing to do this. Keep in mind, when Barbara Walters interviewed Putin, there was no problem. When CNN and others interviewed Putin, there was never a problem. It's only a problem when Tucker Carlson is doing the interview. And you've had folks interview Osama bin Laden back in the day. President Xi just had a visit from the governor of California. So if we're going to talk about people talking to our alleged enemies, maybe it needs to be broader than just Tucker Carlson.
That is an absolutely fair point. I would jump at the chance. That said, I'll be looking over my, shoulder for the rest of my life because we know, I mean, I never understand why people working for RT, Russia Today, because this is funded by a government that led by a president that kills people who work as journalists who actually question him. The question is whether there have been any agreements in advance about what sort of questions and what line of questioning there can be, because I wonder if a lot of other media organisations wouldn't agree to an interview on those terms. That's the only question. But we don't know. We can't really judge until we've seen the interview.
Well, and what we've been told is it's going to be a raw 1 hour or 2 hours of the whole interview, not
I don't
cut,
think I can
not
cope with 2
edited.
hours.
So we're going to see the whole thing.
Will you watch it?
Absolutely, as will, I think, millions of others. This will break the internet.
Yeah, that's Tucker Carlson for you. Steve Gill, thank you so much for joining us.